Long time no see, Sarah.
I was taken aback. After 13 years, I unexpectedly ran into my ex-husband, Jack, who had eloped with my younger sister, Julia. It happened in the grocery store's vegetable section, where I had come to shop. Standing beside me was my daughter, Zoe. Since she didn't remember Jack as her father, she looked at both of us with a puzzled expression. I tried to ignore him and walk away.
Wait, just hear me out.
Jack grabbed my wrist as I tried to leave, refusing to let go. Zoe kept staring at me with a curious look while Jack, still holding my wrist, started explaining why he had returned to town. To put it simply, he ran out of money. That was the whole pathetic reason he came back to beg his ex-wife, me, for help. Just let go of me.
You're still living with that old senile man, aren't you? I can't believe it. We're divorced, remember?
Jack, he took responsibility for what you did and helped us. Don't insult him.
Whatever. Julia and I are moving into the old house, so why don't you take that old man and leave?
I shook off Jack's grip and glared at him. But no matter how hard I stared, he just shrugged and joked, "I'll call you later," before walking away. Zoe watched his back as he left, then turned to me with a bright smile.
You did it, Mom.
My name is Sarah. Jack and I got married in what was basically an elopement. His mother had already passed away, and when we decided to get married, one of the conditions was that we had to live with his father, Richard, in his family home. Not long after our new life started, we were blessed with a child. We named her Zoe and poured all our love into raising her. Eloping wasn't exactly something to be proud of, but I was happy. When Zoe turned 3 and things had settled down with raising her, we planned a trip. We left her with Richard, who she had been very attached to since she was little, so I felt safe leaving her in his care. It was our first road trip in a long time. It was not just Jack and I. My sister Julia also accompanied us.
I'm so happy. It's been a while since I've been on a trip. Your driving is so smooth and relaxing, Jack.
Julia sat in the back seat, rolling down the window with a bright smile. Jack, in the driver's seat, grinned at her. Julia had always been good at charming people. She called Jack Big Bro and was very attached to him. It was part of her natural charisma, and since she was my precious little sister, Jack had generously covered all the travel expenses. We wandered through tourist spots, laughing together. Both Julia and I were having a great time with Jack. Leaving the busy streets lined with lively shops, we walked down a small side road. While Jack stepped away to use the restroom, Julia and I sat down at a simple outdoor resting area, catching our breath.
Sorry, Sarah. I feel bad for tagging along on what was supposed to be a romantic trip for just you two.
It's fine. Jack seems to enjoy having you here too.
Really? That makes me feel better.
Julia tied her long hair back. At that moment, a sweet fragrance drifted into my nose. She must have noticed me staring in silence because she smiled softly.
Do you recognize it? I love this scent.
She pulled a small perfume bottle from her bag. It was an aroma mist I had given her for her birthday. It wasn't anything fancy, but I had mixed a fragrance oil that I thought suited her with distilled water and put it into a store-bought spray bottle. But Julia had been so thrilled, calling it my own special gift, with a beaming smile. I'm glad you like it.
You've always had great taste, Sarah. Ever since we were kids, you always picked the best things. You have an eye for quality.
I looked down, feeling a little embarrassed. I had never thought Julia saw me that way.
Mom and Dad keep saying you've turned into a bad person. But to me, you've always been someone I admire.
Something about her words felt unnatural, and I started to feel uneasy. It was as if she was about to disappear somewhere. If you ever need anything, just let me know. Jack and I are always on your side. Just then, Jack returned, and Julia immediately jumped up from the bench. Grabbing his arm playfully, she urged him to hurry so we could go sightseeing again. Since Zoe was born, I couldn't remember the last time I had walked outside feeling so relaxed. After a long day of walking, enjoying a delicious dinner, and returning to the hotel, I fell asleep right away. It must have been around 2 a.m. I woke up to the sound of the hotel room door opening. What's wrong? Still lying in bed, I asked Jack, who was standing by the door, his shoulders tensed for a brief moment. He looked startled, as if he hadn't expected me to be awake. Feeling suspicious, I sat up and walked toward him. Where were you this late? Don't tell me you went drinking.
No, of course not. We have a long day tomorrow. Let's just get some sleep.
Jack tried to slip past me toward the bedroom, but at that moment, I caught a familiar scent. The fragrance spread through the small hotel room. It was unmistakably Julia's perfume. And it wasn't just a faint trace from spending the day together. It was strong, deliberate, as if she had put it on specifically to make sure I noticed. You smell like Julia. Did you go to her room? Between us, time seemed to freeze. Julia was staying in the next room. If Jack had a reason to go there, I didn't know what it was, but I didn't want to ask any more questions. Jack stared at me and said nothing. Then, after a moment, he scratched his head and gave a slight smirk.
Well,
I had no intention of questioning him further. But instead of looking guilty, Jack seemed almost amused, like a child whose prank had been exposed, as he began openly admitting to his affair. When he finished, he looked completely at ease, laughing.
See, I was honest with you, so you have to forgive me. My bad.
Saying that, Jack crawled into bed. I stood there in shock for several minutes before finally grabbing the hairbrush, cotton swabs, and other toiletries from the vanity and scattering them across the room.
What the hell are you doing?
Jack sat up in bed, staring at me in stunned disbelief. Ignoring him, I threw his clothes at him, then his shoes, and then I ran out of the room. It was 2 a.m. The sky was cloudless, filled with countless stars. I had fled from the hotel with nothing but my wallet and jacket. Jack didn't chase after me. I didn't even understand why I was running. I just knew I had to get away. During the day, the tourist town had been lively, but now at night, it was eerily quiet and lonely. I wandered aimlessly until the first train of the morning, then returned home. I never saw Jack or Julia again. They had eloped. When I arrived home early that morning, Richard was worried, wondering what had happened. Only little Zoe was delighted to see me back so soon, rushing into my arms. I hugged her tightly, burying my face in her soft shoulder.
Mom, welcome home.
I'm home, Zoe. But now, the lingering scent of that sweet perfume in my nose was nothing but disgusting. Holding Zoe close, I could smell her faintly sweet, slightly warm scent. Only that fragrance comforted me. 13 years passed. On paper, Jack and I had divorced, but we never spoke again. As a single mother, I devoted myself to raising Zoe, working hard to build a life for the two of us. No matter how painful the past had been, 13 years was a long time. Now 16, Zoe had grown into a bright, intelligent young woman. She was well behaved at school, had many friends, and was my pride and joy. Then, one day, while we were out shopping together,
Long time no see, Sarah.
I ran into Jack by chance. It happened in our local grocery store's vegetable section. Zoe, who didn't remember him as her father, looked at us both with a puzzled expression. I ignored him and turned to leave.
Hey, Sarah.
Gripping Zoe's hand, I headed for the exit. Sensing something from my reaction, Zoe obediently quickened her pace to follow me.
Wait, just hear me out.
I was shaken. The events of 13 years ago were locked away deep inside me, never spoken of, not even in front of Zoe. Zoe kept looking at me, confused. Jack, still gripping my wrist, began explaining why he had returned. He had always been terrible with money. He jumped from one job to another, and when his savings finally ran out, he had no choice but to return home. Even as he spoke, he looked oddly amused, like he was talking about someone else's problem. Just let go of me.
You're still living with that old senile man, aren't you? I can't believe it. We're divorced, you know.
Richard took responsibility for what you did when you ran off. Don't insult him.
Yeah, whatever. Julia and I are moving into the old house, so why don't you take that old man and get out?
I yanked my wrist free from Jack's grip and glared at him. But no matter how harshly I looked at him, he just shrugged, smirked playfully, and said, "I'll be in touch," before walking away. Zoe watched Jack's retreating back, then squeezed my hand tightly. When we got home, I received a message on my phone. I had no idea how he got my number, but it was from Jack. The message, filled with cheerful emojis, told me to clear out of the house in a month. I could already picture Jack's carefree smirk and Julia's condescending stare beside him. A month, I muttered softly. Behind me, Zoe peeked over at the message on my phone.
What's this?
For a few seconds, I hesitated. Then I decided to tell her. I told her the man we had just met was her biological father. I vaguely explained that, after 13 years, Jack had returned because he had nowhere else to go. After listening, Zoe clapped her hands lightly with a bright smile.
You did it, Mom.
What?
Because that house.
Hearing Zoe's next words, I couldn't help but smile. For a long time, Richard, Zoe, and I had lived in that house. It had an old-fashioned charm, worn by time. The walls and roof in faded colors. The whole house seemed slightly tilted, and I wasn't sure whether it was my imagination or reality. The yard, overgrown with weeds, was left unattended due to our busy lives. A creeping vine spread its tendrils all over the ground, covering the wild grass. Opening the front door made the wooden floor creak. I remembered little Zoe running across that creaky floor, rushing into the kitchen after school. We were poor. I couldn't afford to buy everything she wanted. But one thing was certain. I had fought desperately to make both Zoe and myself happy. A month passed since my unexpected reunion with Jack. My phone rang. Jack's name appeared on the screen. Taking a deep breath, I pressed the call button.
Hey, Sarah, the house is locked. Are you out?
That house? No one's lived there for 5 years now. The real estate company has the keys, so I can't open it either.
What do you mean? Then where the hell are you living now?
I didn't answer his question. I simply closed my eyes. I remembered the day Richard had tears streaming down his face after my divorce from Jack. He sincerely apologized for his son's actions and even offered financial support. At the time, I didn't have a stable job. Richard helped me find work at the small sheet metal factory he owned in town. It was a small business with only a handful of employees, working as a subcontractor for a major company. I couldn't handle the heavy metal work, so I focused on accounting and sales, doing my best to contribute. But it was a male-dominated industry, both in the factory and among our business clients. I constantly felt like I didn't belong. The young male workers always looked down on me. I lacked physical strength and technical knowledge. I couldn't work overtime because I had to take care of Zoe. Every day, I gritted my teeth to keep going. The day an employee said to me, "You are only a wealthy young lady after all," I cried quietly so that Zoe would not see me. Even so, I worked harder than anyone else, building knowledge and connections in the industry. I wanted to make sure Zoe never felt the loneliness of growing up without a father. If I couldn't give her a dad, I would make up for it with money. Money. I needed money. I wanted to buy Zoe whatever clothes she liked and whatever food she liked. No matter how hard life was, I always smiled in front of Zoe. I wanted to remain a strong mother for her. Eventually, the company grew significantly. I developed a system that allowed for precise sheet metal processing with fast delivery times, securing my position within the company. Now, my income was stable, and for the past 5 years, I had been living in a high-end condominium with concierge service built in our hometown. Originally, Zoe and I never planned to live in such a luxurious place. But Richard, who had lived with us all these years, said something to me.
Sarah, thank you for everything. I can't even begin to express how grateful I am to you.
No, I should be the one thanking you. Even though I divorced Jack and had no real ties left, you gave me a job. I'm truly grateful. One day, Richard made a surprising proposal. A high-end condominium was being built nearby. As a token of appreciation for all the help I had given him, both in his personal life and in the company's management, he wanted to purchase a unit for me.
From now on, you and Zoe should live there together.
But Richard, I was planning to stay in this house forever. Richard shook his head. As he aged, he had started to feel uneasy about living alone. Perhaps sensing my hesitation, he reassured me with a smile, saying he would buy another unit in the same building so we could still be close.
This house is really old now. Wouldn't Zoe be embarrassed by it? Don't worry, I've already planned for her college expenses.
It's not about the money. I have no complaints about our life right now. I'm sure Zoe feels the same.
I know. I understand.
The house deterioration had become severe, especially the exterior. The rust-covered tin walls made it look run down. Zoe had never once invited her friends over. She was probably embarrassed by the state of our home.
I should have made this decision sooner. I was too focused on work and neglected our daily lives.
The road Richard and I walked together had never been easy. The company had gone through unstable periods. We lost business when some of our clients went bankrupt. There were also workplace accidents. But no matter how hard things got, Richard and I worked side by side to overcome those hardships. Our relationship had long since evolved beyond just employer and employee. We had become comrades, bound by our struggles. All right, if you're offering this for Zoe and me, then I'm truly grateful. Thank you.
Of course. I owe you both so much.
But I have one condition. I had only one request. I didn't want us living in separate units. I wanted us to live together. Richard was shocked and fell silent for a moment, looking conflicted, but I continued speaking without hesitation. Moving into a new home and living in comfort is wonderful, but we're family, aren't we? Living together should be natural.
Sarah, that means a lot to me, but I don't want to be a burden.
Zoe doesn't have a father. She needs a grandfather. Please stay with us for her sake. I had always wanted to repay Richard for everything he had done. Without him, Zoe and I could have ended up on the streets after Jack abandoned us. Running the factory had never been easy for him. He was always at work, always pushing himself beyond his limits. Even when a blizzard hit and all employees were forced to take the day off, he was the only one still working in the factory. Even during periods when the company had taken on more orders than it could handle, Richard refused to stop. While other employees went home, he stayed behind, working late into the night. I often worried about him and tried to get him to rest, but every time, he would say the same thing.
Sarah, spend every second you can at home with Zoe. If you ever need money, just let me know.
And true to his word, he never failed to support us, making sure we had a place to live and enough to get by. But that wasn't all. Whenever she had a sports day or a school event, he would practically force me to leave work so I could be there. I'm fine, really. It's just a school event. I've missed plenty before.
Just go to Zoe. Don't worry, I've got things covered at work.
I knew Richard was pushing himself at his age, but he never showed it. In front of me, he remained strong, the reliable father-in-law I had always known. At the sports field, I watched Zoe running with all her might during the school sports day. Noticing me, she beamed and waved enthusiastically. I had always thought about how I could repay Richard for everything he had done for us. When I proposed that we live together, Richard was speechless at first. Then, with a small sigh, he gave in. He placed a hand on my shoulder and offered me a gentle smile.
I'm getting older. I may not be able to support you and Zoe much longer.
You've already done more than enough for us. Now, it's my turn to support you.
One day, I might just become a burden to you and Zoe.
I looked Richard in the eyes. There were things words couldn't express, but he knew. Zoe and I needed him. He was our family. For Zoe's sake, please live with us.
Geez, if you use Zoe as an excuse, how am I supposed to refuse?
But it's the truth. She needs her grandfather.
You really are the best salesperson in the company, Sarah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And so, the three of us, Zoe, Richard, and I, began our new life in the condominium. That was already 5 years ago. No one lived in our old house anymore. Sometimes, when passing by his former home, Richard would sigh, saying it was a little sad that no new tenants had moved in. Though he had turned the house over to a real estate agency, it must have been painful to see his childhood home slowly turning into a ghost house. Zoe knew how much it meant to Richard, which is why she was so thrilled when she heard that Jack planned to move in. "Mom, this is great," she said. But Jack had no idea what kind of state the house was in. After 5 years of being unoccupied, it was practically abandoned. The exterior walls and roof were severely damaged. No buyers were interested, and the real estate company had already told us that demolition was only a matter of time.
Hey, are you even listening? I can't live in this dump. Where the hell is Zoe living?
Jack's voice roared through the receiver, filled with frustration. I calmly explained everything over the phone. How Richard had helped me, how we had worked together to grow the company, how we had moved into the condominium together. I didn't tell him where we lived, but I made it clear we had long since left the old house. When I finished, Jack practically screamed.
So you're just living off that rich old CEO now? You gold-digging bitch! I have a right to that company too. I'm coming over there right now.
His voice was so loud that I instinctively held the phone away from my ear. Richard, who had been listening nearby, gave me a look and took the receiver from my hand. Right now, Richard and I worked on the same floor. And the reason for that was,
Long time no see, Jack.
What, Dad? Why are you there? Whatever, I already heard from Sarah. Sounds like the company's doing pretty well now. I don't have a job right now, so just set me up with some cushy position, will ya?
You've got to be kidding me.
even I was shocked at the sheer force of Richard's anger. His shoulders trembled, his fists clenched tightly. I had never seen him so furious before.
Sarah is now the vice president of this company. If it weren't for her, we never would have come this far.
Vice President? Are you serious? Well, whatever, Dad. Let's just live together again, you know? Wouldn't it be easier for you to live with your real son?
Jack, while you were off the grid, Sarah was the one who took care of me. She supported me through everything. To me, she's far more important than you, and she's my real daughter.
My real daughter. Hearing those words, my chest tightened with emotion. After leaving Jack, I never went back to my parents' house. I had eloped and shamed my family. I felt I had no right to face them. For so many years, I had felt like I was raising Zoe all alone. Richard scolded Jack over the phone again and again. He called him out for abandoning Zoe and me. He explained how much I had suffered without any financial support.
I'm doing much better now, but back then, my health wasn't good. If Sarah hadn't been there, I might not even be standing here today.
Oh, come on. That's an exaggeration. From now on, I'll support you, Dad. Let's work together.
Jack, let me make this absolutely clear. You are disowned. Don't ever call here again.
Without waiting for a response, Richard slammed the phone down. Now, it was just the two of us in the office. We locked eyes and then burst out laughing. No words were needed. Richard and I had truly become like a real father and daughter. I had never raised Zoe alone. I had a kind and loving father right in front of me, sharing this moment of laughter. For that, I was deeply grateful. Jack never contacted us again. He had always drifted through life like a wandering rootless weed, so no one was particularly worried when he disappeared. But 3 months later, my phone rang with a blocked number. At the time, I was at home on my day off. Zoe had insisted on cooking lunch for me, so I sat on the couch, watching her cheerfully prepare the meal.
Hello. Do you know who this is?
A familiar voice came from the phone. There was no way I could forget my sister's voice. "How have you been?" I asked. "Fine," Julia replied shortly. Even though I couldn't see her, I could tell from her voice that she was down. She confessed that after eloping with Jack, she had gotten involved with another married man. Recently, the man's wife found out and sued her. Now, she owed a huge sum in damages.
I'm sorry, Sarah. I know I have no right to ask, but please help me. I'm begging you.
I understand how hard this must be for you, but I can't help you.
Why? What about our bond as sisters? You always said you'd be there for me if I needed you.
That's true. No matter what, you're still my family. But right now, I have an even more important family right in front of me. From the kitchen, Zoe brought out a beautifully plated dish of pasta. Richard, smiling warmly, set down drinks and forks. Not wanting to interrupt my call, they quietly put their hands together and started eating. A faint scent of garlic filled the room, making my stomach growl slightly.
I guess. It was selfish of me to ask.
Yeah,
I love you, Sarah. That's why.
because I wanted to be like you. I didn't understand what Julia meant. Even now, I don't think I ever will. By running off with Jack, did she think she could live a life like mine? But what kind of life had I even lived? Saying I never resented Julia for taking Jack from me would be a lie. But even so, she was still my sister. I wanted her to be happy. A few years later, I learned from my parents that Julia and Jack had divorced. Richard retired as the CEO. With his strong recommendation, I was appointed as the new CEO. Being a woman in a male-dominated industry came with many challenges. But by my side were the young men who had once worked alongside me in that small factory, supporting me as I led the company. I was busy, but my life was fulfilling. I had defied my parents, eloped, then divorced, and now I was living for my work. Would my parents ever accept me? Would they be sad about the life I had chosen? The many decisions I had made in my life were not mistakes. Someday, I want to take Zoe and visit my parents. Will they praise me then? My dad and mom